Hello, everyone. Welcome to this latest webinar brought to you by the fine folks at Octopus. My name is John Bristow, and thank you for joining us today. Thank you for your time and attention. We really appreciate it. We've got Steve and Michael joining us here today. And before we get started, I just wanted to share with you a couple of housekeeping notes. First and foremost, be aware that this webinar is being recorded, so it will be available up on our YouTube channel, which you can find at Octopus or youtube.com/octopus deploy. There it is. And then also, I want to share with you a couple of resources here just to be aware. So we've got our webinars page, which you can find up at octopus.com/webinars. If you go there, you'll see a page that looks like this. And on this page, you'll find a bunch of webinars. The one that you're attending today is this one here, Free Your Teams from Maintenance Tasks with Runbooks. Coming up, we've got the Octopus 101. We've got a really cool webinar with Adam and Graham talking about secure CD at scale with Vault and Octopus Deploy. So Vault is a credential management solution from HashiCorp, and this would be a really good solution to use these two together. And so Adam and Graham will talk about that. We've also got a new feature coming soon to Octopus, config as code for runbooks, and Harriet, Robert, and Caitlin will be talking about this in an upcoming webinar on November 14th entitled Introducing Config as Code for Runbooks. Very obvious title. We've got a bunch of other webinars coming up as well. So you'll find all of these at octopus.com/webinars. So make sure to check that out. Another resource I wanted to tell you about is Shipped. This is our 2-day online virtual conference at octopus.com/shipped. We're at 19 days, probably 20 days for you folks there, joining us in the US and UK. So we're at 19 days now until Shipped, and you'll find a whole host of sessions here. This is as I said, an online virtual event. It's got 2 days of content featuring folks like Steve, and we'll have a bunch of speakers listed. You can find the schedule there up on the site. You can also find all the bios of the speakers for this event, so make sure to check that out. Again, that's at octopus.com/shipped. Make sure to register today. And with that, I am done. Thank you very much. Well, I'd like to turn things over to Steve and Michael, who will be talking to you about Runbooks today. And yeah, the floor is yours. Thank you.
So thanks for joining, everyone. We'll probably start off by doing some quick introductions. So Michael, let us know about yourself.
Hello, everyone. Happy Halloween. My name is Michael Richardson. I'm a product director here at Octopus. I spend my days figuring out how we can help every company achieve continuous delivery. Before joining Octopus, I was a software engineer, shipping code, mostly badly, but purely as research for my current role, of course. Over to you, Steve.
Hi, I'm Steve. I'm the principal DevOps researcher at Octopus Deploy. I'm also a DORA community guide and a CD Foundation outreach committee member. And I've been at Octopus for a couple of years, but before that, I was an Octopus customer and super fan. And I wrote a book about Octopus called Exploring Octopus Deploy, and kind of managed, luckily, to eventually end up here. So yeah, I'm kind of, I love the product, and now I get to work with all the folks that build it, which is very cool. So today, we're going to be covering a few things about runbooks, and we're going to start off by talking about what runbooks actually are.
We're also going to dive in a little bit to the origin of runbooks in Octopus, the Octopus feature.
And then we're going to talk about some of the benefits of runbooks and why you probably want to use them.
We're going to take a look at some real-world data that we have from our own customers and see how people actually use runbooks out there in the real world.
And we'll look at some scenarios and a demo of runbooks. We'll show you how they work in real life.
And just to finish up, we'll give a little bit of a teaser at that launch that John hinted at earlier. So we have config as code for runbooks coming out very, very soon. And we'll take a quick little sneak peek at that too.
Super exciting. So let's start off then by talking about what is a runbook. And the easiest way of thinking about this is by treating it a little bit like the ages of runbooks. So if we go all the way back to the Stone Age of runbooks, someone on the team would know how to do something like backing up a database or performing a maintenance task. And it was like folk runbooks. So instead of sitting around a campfire passing on stories using the oral tradition, people would gather around the computer screen and the knowledge would be passed on that way. And hopefully you would remember what you were told so that you could accurately replicate it yourself. And then you would be responsible for passing the knowledge on to the next generation of people. We then moved on to the Bronze Age, which is where someone decided it would be a good idea to write that down so that it didn't depend on the process of trying to explain something and people would change a detail or forget something. So by writing it down, we were hoping to make things more responsible, more repeatable and reliable. And it let more people be involved in doing the task because they could follow along and do each item. But they had to do all of the steps in the right order, and very often something would be missed. So we then move into the Iron Age, where to try and solve this problem, you would add some scripts in. So the checklist would involve double-clicking on some script files and then maybe doing a couple of manual changes and then running another script file. So it made things a little bit better, but if you missed a step, it could still go quite badly wrong. So what we really want is to move into futuristic runbooks. And this is where you have a fully automated task, and it can either run on a schedule automatically, or it can run at the push of a button. And it shares lots of the qualities of what good deployments look like, which is you can press that button and you know it's going to work. And it's secure and it's repeatable. So nothing gets missed, nothing gets done in the wrong order. And the difference between all of those previous ages and these futuristic runbooks is that all of these previous versions, you never got any more confident that something would work because there was always the opportunity for a mistake. But with these futuristic runbooks, the more times you run them, the more confident you get that they're going to work. So that's the whole idea behind runbooks in Octopus, is that you can actually press that button and not feel anxious about what's going to happen. So yeah, that's the history of runbooks. Let's now look at runbooks in Octopus.
I love that metaphor, Steve, of the ages of runbooks. Makes me very old knowing I've lived through all of them as well. So we have a runbooks feature in Octopus, and the inspiration for this feature came, like many of the things we build do, from literally just seeing how our customers were using Octopus. And what we would see over and over again is customers that had many projects. And when we'd look at these projects, it was pretty obvious that only a small fraction represented the actual applications that were being deployed. The rest were clearly utility tasks. They were runbooks. And so there's an example of this in the screenshot in this slide. You can see that in our pet shop example, we have the pet shop web and the pet shop backend. These are the applications. And all these other projects like rollback web, backup databases, restore production database, these are the runbook processes. And this was a really common pattern. And the way it often looked was you'd have a project group, like the pet shop one in this case, and that would contain both the deployment processes and all these utility projects, runbook projects, if you like. And so what was the problem? Why was there anything wrong with this? Well, there was a few reasons why it wasn't ideal. The UX was all a little wonky for this use case. You don't really want to be creating releases or deploying them for these type of operations processes. You don't really want them showing up on your dashboards in that sense. You often find that you want to share things between the runbooks and the actual application deployments, things like variables, the tenants that the project uses. And so all around it worked, but we knew it could be better. So that was our opportunity to build first-class support for runbooks in Octopus. And luckily, we already had all the pieces necessary for a great runbook solution. You know, we had the ability to model a workflow, the series of steps. We had environments. We had connections to all the infrastructure, like an agent that runs on the virtual machines, etc. We had the configuration management in the form of variables. So we had all the Lego bricks to build a great runbook solution. And in fact, that's the way it played out when it came to actually developing runbooks. We really were just taking a few things away that were typically there for the deployment processes. And yeah, so we introduced the Runbooks feature in late 2019, and as you'll see a little later in the webinar, we think it's been pretty successful. But over to you, Steve, for some of the benefits of using Runbooks.
Yeah, so why would you want to use these runbooks? And from my personal experience, one of the things that I realized was in order to do these tasks, if you're doing them manually or with scripts, is you have to have special access to infrastructure or to portals. And that means the people who can actually execute these tasks are usually the more senior people on your team. So you're taking time away from those folks doing what you probably really want them to do, which is working on features and coming up with cool ideas. But it also means you're blocking all of the people that need them to do those tasks. So you might have a tester that needs a cache cleared in order to continue their work, and they're in a queue waiting to be processed. So no one is happy with this situation because the people who need to be working on features are now processing a ticketing queue and managing Slack messages. And the people who are waiting to test are now blocked because they can't finish their task until someone responds. So when you automate a runbook with Octopus, you're not just making it easier for your developers or your ops team who are managing that ticket queue, you're also making it easier for the other people who are depending on them to continue their work. So you're kind of like getting the best of both worlds. I think none of us want to be like being disrupted all the time by Slack messages or people turning up at your desk dressed as a stormtrooper or ticketing systems. There's also another set of benefits, which is it reduces mistakes and errors and increases security. So when you have to be logging on to infrastructure or cloud portals or whatever elevated access you need, when you need those admin permissions, there's a chance you're going to do something you didn't intend to do. So whether you're logging into a virtual machine or you're running a command like kubectl, or it's an Azure or AWS portal or connecting to a database, almost everyone's got a story of accessing infrastructure to perform a small task and then doing something accidentally that kind of takes the whole environment down. It could be as simple as shutting down a virtual machine instead of logging off of it, or missing a crucial flag from your command line. So, having people with full-time admin access just provides this huge attack surface. Whereas with runbooks, you don't need it for these minor tasks. So you can then probably remove access for a load of people that no longer need to do that toil, and then just use like temporary elevated access or break glass accounts when you need them, because no one really wants this access, and really if you're kind of in charge of security, you don't really want to grant it either. So Michael, shall we have a look at some of the statistics?
Absolutely. So we're going to have a look at a few numbers here that hopefully help show the impact that runbooks have had. And not even going to hide the fact we're just bragging a little bit too, to be honest. So we see 3,200 companies modeling runbooks in Octopus today. And across those, we see about 200,000 runbooks. And I think the number that we found truly quite astonishing once we went and had a look at it for this webinar was we see 160 million runbook runs per day right now, which if you imagine all of those as manual tasks rather than automated ones. Steve, did we do the calculation on what that comes out as?
So yeah, I mean, even if that's just 1 minute, that's like 100,000 person days saved.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing, I think. And if we jump to the next slide here, we went through and had a look, and we tried to categorize the things that runbooks were actually being used to give a look at the real world use cases. And if we have a look at these, We see lots of things like restarting services. This was, as we were designing Runbooks, this was really our canonical use case as well. Restarting the old IaaS service. Probably in a perfect world shouldn't be needed, but we see it so often. Lots of provisioning infrastructure, lots of running Terraform. This is presumably to model things like, ephemeral environments, spinning the infrastructure up and down. Also scaling up production environments when there's high load. We see lots of key rotation, so things like rotating certificates or rotating credentials, importing and exporting data. This touches on what Steve was talking about as well. It's such a nice use case because you can give the runbook access to the database without having to give individuals access. So if you want to run a nightly report to see something, or bulk data imports and exports, really nice use case. But outside of all those sort of defined categories that we found, you can see the biggest slice of that pie there by far is the other. And this represents the fact that, the vast majority of the runbooks are just all those company specific and application specific things that keep applications ticking everywhere, the miscellaneous tasks. And yeah, we love to see it.
So that accounts for about 100,000 runbooks. So what is happening with the other 100,000? Now, there's a mix of sensible and surprising things going on here. So from the sensible category, there are things like clearing caches, updating log settings to set them to be either more or less verbose, resetting data for test environments, changing DNS, and scaling up or down, or resizing instances. So, for example, you might scale your test environment to zero instances in the evenings or at weekends. But the surprising ones are also interesting. We found people are doing things like applying printer settings or doing office automation, like switching on lights or starting coffee machines. And we also found a runbook that's called Happy Crisis Handler. And I don't know what it does, but it sounds amazing.
I need to know the story behind that one. I love the idea of the office automation runbooks too. I think we need to set that up in Octopus HQ. Actually, I need it for my home more than that. So we need to run the dishwasher every night.
And I think we'd probably take the coffee machine one right now. I think you're early in Brisbane and I'm getting later in the UK, so coffee is definitely needed. Run that runbook.
I think the summary is they're just a really convenient place, right, to run those scheduled tasks. And yeah.
Absolutely. So let's dive into a demo.
Absolutely. So can you see my screen there? So we've got our little Halloween Octopus instance here, and what we're going to do is we're just going to take a bit of a refresher of what runbooks in Octopus look like. So runbooks live inside of projects, and the key difference with runbooks is that you can have many of them. Whereas there's one deployment process, you can have as many runbooks as you like for that application. And if we jump into any given runbook, they have a process just like a deployment process with a series of steps. And something interesting that we see from, again, looking at the real world usage is the vast majority of runbooks have a small number of steps. Very few have more than 2 or 3 steps in them. And this represents the fact that they're often a script that's being run, just like it is in this case. One of the neat things with runbooks is that you can define triggers on them. So we can come in here and say, we want a trigger that runs every night. We'll run this one against production. And yeah, we will say we won't run it on the weekends. We don't need to. And since it's a scary runbook, this one, we'll run it at 9 p.m. every night. And that will now go and say boo every night for us. But that's the scheduled side. But the other really nice thing about runbooks is similar to how deployment processes brought the big green button for deployments and democratized deployments. Runbooks do the same thing for operations tasks. the button's not green anymore, but it gives that button that anyone can come in, hit run on, and choose the environment they want it to run in. And that will kick that off and run. So it democratizes those operations tasks. You can run it safely in the knowledge that it's going to work, it's automated. And if anyone's been paying close attention as I've been doing this demo, you'll notice we've got this little chip here now. And that is because one of the things we've been working on recently is bringing config as code for runbooks, or bringing runbooks to config as code, whichever way around you think about it. And what that means is that if we jump over into the Git repository that's backing this project here, we can jump in and we can see that our runbooks are now included in version control alongside our application and alongside the deployment process. So we can jump in and have a look at those. It's all beautifully version controlled, which is great. And my actual favorite part of this feature is that if we jump back over here, what this gives us is, of course, branches, because Git brings branches. And that effectively gives us a really elegant draft mode for these runbooks. So if I want to go and make a change to a runbook, what I can do now is make that change on another branch. And anyone else who comes in to run that runbook, so anyone who doesn't have edit permissions, they will only ever run the version of that runbook that's on our default branch, so main in this case. And this really gives us draft mode in the way that we always hoped that it would work for runbooks. So this replaces the old publishing mechanism that we used to have for runbooks and just uses Git branches natively. And yeah, I think it's actually a really, really nice improvement on runbooks. And Steve and I were talking earlier and saying that, bringing config as code for runbooks actually in many ways makes more sense than it did for the deployment process. It's even more valuable. Runbooks belong in Git, and ever since we shipped config as code, it's been one of our most highly requested features ever since was config as code for runbooks. So I think yeah, it's brilliant to see that it's coming, and we will talk about that in much more detail in a webinar coming up in a couple of weeks, I think. So yeah, that's our teaser of config as code for runbooks.
I love the fact that with the runbooks, that you can actually now, instead of just making it a shorter process for yourself to offload that toil, that you can give that run button to the people who need to perform the operation, because you're not giving them any special access. You can say, I want my test team to be able to run this run book on the test environment. So now they can self-serve. They never get blocked. It's like such a positive thing.
And as someone coming in to run these, I also really value the fact that you get to see when it was run as well, because you know what it's like. If you run something and you can see it's been run regularly, like in this case, a couple of days ago, it was green. It gives you so much confidence in clicking it. It's very different to going and executing a set of steps from a Confluence page that you have no idea when the last time anyone actually tried to do this was. It's probably, let's be honest, it's probably years out of date by this point. So yeah, it's always the correct version.
And you can also, with the runbooks, you can actually put in information, can't you, to show what the runbook's doing. You can kind of document it. So the runbook screen is not just somewhere where you can kind of hit the button. It also can be like your wiki page for what the runbook does. So it can capture that additional information. So
that's a great point. Yeah, this we can actually have a look here at these are the collection of runbooks that we use on our internal instance here at Octopus. So this is our actual this is how we ship Octopus. And if we have a look at these, exactly like Steve said, you can see that someone's taken the time to document them, and they're effectively a runnable wiki at this point, which I think is a really compelling use case of this. In this case, we've got our runbooks internally that we use to promote changes through environments and to particular customers. And if I wanted to, I could sit here and read all the details of what they were actually going to do as well. Let's be honest, I'm not going to read all the details. I'm just going to click run, aren't I? Because I'm very confident that it will work.
Awesome. So we hope this has been a really helpful overview of Runbooks, and we wanted to make sure that everyone knew they existed, because if you're using Octopus for your deployments, but you're not using Runbooks, like the feature is there waiting for you. You can just go ahead and just start using it. And we also wanted to give you those ideas for like what other people are using them for, because it might be the inspiration you need to go and set up your first Runbook. So if anyone has any questions, we would love to hear them right now about Runbooks or the self-service aspect or permissions. Yeah, we'd love to hear from you.
Awesome. I'll leave the banner up there. Thanks, Michael. Thanks, Steve. We'll just keep you guys there for a second. I'm just going to wrap up with obviously some reminders here. Don't forget, we've got some other webinars coming up. By the way, you can post your question just by submitting a comment where you're joining us, Twitch, YouTube, X, LinkedIn, doesn't matter. Just submit a comment and we'll answer it there. If you want to find out more about some of the webinars that we have coming up, you can visit our webinars page at /webinars. We've got our Shipped event coming up, don't forget. And then a recording of this event will show up on our YouTube channel. So if you haven't subscribed, please feel free to do so. We post all our webinars there along with other types of videos. So make sure to check that out. Awesome. I think that was a little bit of tap dancing on my part. So there you go. All right, we've got a question here from Porter, who asks, we have a pattern that we use often. We have a project that deploys to tenants with some helper runbooks that reference the same package as deployment steps. When we run the runbook against a tenant, we want to always use the same package that is deployed to that tenant. Right now, we do that by looking up the latest deployment, copying the package version, then pasting that in when running the runbook. Does Octopus have any good way of automating this?
The answer is you would have to use one of the Octopus API calls, I think, to fetch that. And off the top of my head, I think the dashboard API might be the place to look for that. So you can actually hit the Octopus API and get the currently deployed versions for that environment and tenant. I'm pretty sure we actually do the same in our internal ones as well. Unfortunately, there's no more first-class way, I guess, than that, if you like, I think.
Okay. All right, just to remind folks, we are going to be running our next webinar, as I said before, later on this month. This is, again, me just time wasting to see if there are any other questions. Doesn't look like there are any other questions. Thank you very much, everyone. We really appreciate it. Sincerely, we always appreciate everyone showing up for these things, learning a little bit more about what's happening around the world of Octopus Deploy, and obviously look forward to that upcoming webinar featuring config as code for Runbooks, which is very exciting. Any final thoughts, Steve or Michael?
No, just we'd love to see folks using some more Runbooks, because like we want to see more days saved.
Yeah, and if you ever have any particularly creative ones, feel free to jump into the community Slack and share them as well. We love real world stories of how people use the product. So.
Awesome. So if you want to find out more, this is, again, a great point. There's so many resources we have to share. But if you want to find out more about some of the resources we have, one of the resources we have is this one, which is at /community. So if you go there, you'll see a page that looks like this. And this is the URL here. One of the locations you can go to here, one of the resources you can use is our Slack community. So if you use this, you can join the over 6,000 people we have on that community to ask questions. We have a bunch of other resources as well. You can check these out at the /community site. So thanks for mentioning that. Really appreciate it. Anyways, well, on behalf of Michael and Steve, thank you very much for joining us today for today's webinar. We really appreciate it. Oh, okay, we've got some comments there. Great. Thanks all. There you go. Great presentation. Awesome.
And happy Halloween, everyone.
Yes, that's right. Awesome. Well, on behalf of Michael and Steve, thank you for your time and attention. Really appreciate it. And until next time, happy deployments, everyone, and happy Halloween. Take care.